It's a mixtape episode. It's one of those ones where I cobbled together what I probably would have done for you when I was a teenager. I'm going to go back in time and sit down and pull out that Maxell tape with the little sleeve and figure out the artwork I'm going to do just for you. And honestly, when I was putting this episode together, you would not believe the amount of time I sat there and I hem and hawed over which order and what would be the perfect side one and side two. And I don't even think I needed to do that, but I got caught up in that feeling. So I'm really excited about today's episode because it's all about B-sides. It's about the kind of B-sides that back when I was growing up, I would have put on a tape to show off to you, whether I was crushing on you or I was just, befriending. I mean, it was, let's be honest, it was definitely because of crushes or liking a girl and wanting to impress her with your music taste. But every now and then you'd have a buddy and you'd be like, oh, well, here, let me make a mix for you. And you make the mix just to kind of show off like, hey, these are probably songs that you weren't familiar with that I think are awesome. And they're by huge bands or bands that are on the rise. And I know something you don't know, right? That's essentially the core of what this mixtape is. It's like, I know something you don't know. And that's why you think I'm cool. So let me just lay it out there on the line. That's what today's episode is. Let's get into, I'm going to say it's time to talk about my 90s B-side mix for you, part 1. Let's go.
Things are going to change. I can feel it.
If this going to be that kind of party, I'm going to...
Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records with Jacob Gibbons.
I know that the majority of the Waterproof Records audience are audio only, and I get that because that's what podcasts are for. You want to listen to a show when you're on your drive, you're listening in your AirPods, you're on the move. You need this to be something that's just in your ears so you can keep doing other things. And that's normally what podcasts are for. But I put this on YouTube. Not as many people watch an hour long or 45-minute of me just sitting stationary in one place talking about albums or mixes or whatever. I totally get that. But for those of you who do watch, a few things have changed. I've decided to sit on the couch while I do the show, which is hilarious to me because if you watched as I moved into this new space, I'd been sitting in an office chair in front of the couch like I was being so formal talking to you. And I think I did that because when I was setting up the studio, I was trying to make this look like a really professional place. I had a desk and the 2 chairs for interviews. And then as I've relaxed more into it, I'm like, I have a couch. I have this studio space where I can relax and lean back. I have a microphone that can get closer to me and I can just have a conversation and not feel so stressed about like, I have to be perfectly in position on camera. So that's a variable that's changed. So I'm wondering for those of you listening, will you feel or sense a little bit more of a relaxed situation? And the second thing that is different, I have started alignment trays for my teeth. I had no choice. They were beginning to collide and crack. And so the dentist said, I got to do something to straighten them out. So I am now wearing these trays and I'm actually recording this episode with them in. So if you hear a slight difference to my speaking voice, I think it's just from the trays. I'm trying to learn my best to talk around them. And if it becomes too distracting, I can take them out while I record. But of course, if you know anything about alignment trays, you're supposed to keep them in as long as possible. So if I can get away with speaking on camera, speaking into the microphone, and it's not too distracting, then I'm going to keep doing it. So please tell me if you were like driving in your car and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot listen to Waterproof Records because Jacob has those things in his mouth and it sounds totally different. Please let me know. And then I'll be like, okay, I need to take out the trays when I record. So just let me know on that. But before I get into it, I gave you those two things about sitting on the couch and my alignment trays, but I'm also going to tell you DistroKid is sponsoring the show, of course. DistroKid can take 30% off of your downloads, no, your uploads onto distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. That's my link. If you use that, you sign up for DistroKid, and then all of your music can be on every streaming platform, including YouTube. So make sure you're taking advantage of that 30% off. DistroKid has been a long supporter of the show. So make sure you're taking advantage of that link, distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. All right, it's B-side mixtape time. You know, I shouldn't have said anything about the alignment trays because now I'm in my head about it and I'm thinking, you sound different. I probably should have gone the entire episode and not said a damn thing. And then maybe you would have picked up on a nuance, but now we're all thinking about it. Hopefully we can forget about it. So my B-side mix from the 90s. When I thought about this, I was like, okay, I want to start with one because I think I can do a lot of these. I think that this is definitely a part one because when it comes to songs that were literal B-sides, they were, you know, the song releases, and then you go buy the CD single or the cassette single, and this is the song on the other side, or this is the second song that's not on the album, and it's something that you would only hear if you were a big enough fan of the band that you would go seek out these alternate pieces of music. That is really what showed so much of when you were a kid that you loved a band. So if your favorite band is Pearl Jam, you would do everything you could to go find the singles that they released because you knew you'd be getting these bonus songs on there. And that was, of course, as you all know, surprise, surprise, that was me with the Smashing Pumpkins. But I was also like that with Tori Amos and to some degree on Weezer and Pixies and Radiohead. Those are definitely other ones that I would occasionally get songs by on these singles or extra releases. But what I used my criteria for this was I really tried to build a flow, a mood of these songs because they are definitely all of my favorite artists at the time. So like I said up top, this is very close to what I would have made for you had I known you in, what is this like? I would say this is like 1995. Everything on here, I think, is pretty much around that time. And I made some choices along the way when I was filling them out, and I took them off because I was like, no, you know what? Like, for example, one that I took off this mix was I was going to do JAR by Green Day, which was on the Angus soundtrack. But that ended up becoming a pretty big radio hit. I think it was one of the top songs of theirs in the 90s. So I was like, I don't know if that one counts as much. Maybe I'll put that on a future episode. And of course, I've done the Angus soundtrack on the podcast before. But let's not waste any more time and let's get into the mixtape. So we are on side A. The first track that I'm going to kick off this mix for you is Jamie by Weezer, off of DGC Rarities. Now, this collection, DGC Rarities, has a tremendous amount of amazing music on it. You should, if you've never looked it up, it is a phenomenal collection of bands. Jamie by Weezer. This piece of music, I believe, I should have dug up but what I remember hearing in the 90s is they wrote it for like a school project. It was like a friend of theirs that was in school and had to do some sound engineering. I really should be checking my facts before I say that. I was more interested in the mixtape, but that's the story I remember hearing. And so it's a little on the rougher sound of things. You know, it's kind of like a coarse recording. I mean, those fat guitars are on there, very boomy, but it's not mastered like you would hear on, you know, Blue Album later. You get the Rick Ocasek producing and everything's slick and layered and everything's dense. So this is rough, but it's got to be one of my favorite Weezer B-sides of all time. I love it so much. It's my wife's first name, and the name Jamie, just the way he calls it out. It's been a favorite of mine long before I met her, but I do love this song so very much. So it was released as a B-side to the UK retail single of Buddy Holly, but it was most popular on DGC Rarities Volume 1. And then later it was on a Rarities compilation called Dusty Gems and Raw Nuggets. But if you know your Weezer, then you know Jamie. And there's many B-sides from this time, from Blue Album all the way to Pinkerton. and all of them are great. And I promise you, if I do a B-Sides volume 2, 3, 4, 5, you're gonna hear some of the other amazing ones. You know, Michael and Carly, Suzanne, You Gave Your Love to Me Softly. So many incredible B-sides by this band. Track 2 on Jacob's 90s B-side mix. It's a B-side, but it's also a soundtrack song. This is What the Hell Have I by Alice in Chains off of the Last Action Heroes soundtrack. I would do this one next because I kicked off your mixtape with upbeat, rocky Weezer energy. It's fun. You pop in the cassette, you pop in the mix, and you immediately feel like, all right, this is going to be a good time. And this is my touch of the sinister, of the grunge, of that bendy Jerry Cantrell riff to let you know that this mix is going to be nuanced. Also, as soon as you heard it, you'd be like, wait a second, I know this band, Alice in Chains. I recognize those voices, but maybe you hadn't heard this song yet. Now, this was another one that ended up being released as a single in promotion for, I believe, the film and for the band. It had a music video and everything. I allowed this one, unlike JAR, because while it was popular, I think that it's lesser known now, all these years later. I feel like, and I'm breaking my own rules, aren't I? I'm breaking my own rules because I would have made this tape to show off to you about how much knowledge I have of bands, but I just decided it's a good one for the second. So it was on the Last Action Hero soundtrack, which was June 7th, 1993, as a promotional single, and it peaked number 19 on Billboard's album Rock Tracks. But it's ended up on box set collections like Music Bank and The Essential Alice in Chains. So it's come up on some collections later. But I love this riff. I can play this riff. And it's definitely one of my favorite Alice in Chains songs of all time. Now, on that soundtrack, there are 2 Alice in Chains songs. There's also A Little Bitter, which is another amazing, awesome Alice in Chains song. But for this mix, I would go this way with What the Hell Have I, because A Little Bitter is heavier, and I feel like, oh, my listener might be like, oh, this isn't for me, for what I was trying to accomplish. Okay, number 3, Glennis by the Smashing Pumpkins. I mentioned this on way early podcasts. It is either the Smashing Pumpkins or Smashing Pumpkins, because in the early days they didn't have the and then they added it later. So you can say either. But Glennis is on the No Alternative soundtrack, which was a for AIDS research. It was the Red Hot organization released this collection of music, another amazing collection of songs by so many cool bands. Famously had a hidden track by Nirvana on there as well, which I was considering putting on this mix also. But I was like, all right, Jacob, leave the songs to one collection at a time. But Glennis by the Smashing Pumpkins is one of my favorite B-sides by the band. I made a video about it recently, so that's what kind of inspired this episode. It was on the deluxe edition of Pisces Iscariot in 2012, and I think there's been a couple other things, like maybe it was on the Rarities and B-Sides collection that came out. But the vocal take of Glennis that you can get on streaming and on Pisces reissue, and I believe even Rarities and B-Sides, is not the same as the vocal take from No Alternative. And it makes a huge difference. I don't think that this version, the one that's later, the new vocal take, is bad, but there's something so great about the original No Alternative version. Primarily, Billy Corgan does this falsetto note at the end that is way up there high. And when I first heard this on CD, I thought it was a harmonica. Like it just dials up that note so fiercely high. And then once he comes down off of it and says, yeah, one love, that's when I was like, oh, that's a voice. And it's Billy Corgan's voice. So he takes this way up swing and nails it on the No Alternative recording. And the song itself is just kind of like, it starts so soft. When I was a kid, I was listening, and it was like the kind of the way that Jimmy Chamberlain is hitting like the floor toms, I guess, very slowly, almost like a timpani, and it's just moving and creeping towards you. And James Iha's guitar work is just so delicious on this piece of music. but it's one of my top. The name of the song, Glennis, was named after the Red Meat bassist Glennis Johnson, who had died of AIDS right around this time. Red Meat had toured with the Smashing Pumpkins, and actually were on the show when I saw the Pumpkins for the first time in would have been 1993, I guess. Yeah, would have been 1993 that I saw the Pumpkins, and Red Meat was opening up for them. But Billy Corgan had written the song and named it Glennis after her because he remembered reading a lot of people's opinions and stuff about this person who had died of AIDS. And so he just felt like he wanted to put that name on there, and then it ended up on the No Alternative soundtrack. Now we get to track 4 on this, and I'm kind of been on the, Glennis, we slowed things down. I'm going to continue the slow track of things, but a little bit more dreamy. The thing about Glennis is it ramped up and got very instrumental with like mandolins and fullness. This is a song that has appeared on the podcast before on the Pump Up the Volume soundtrack, but honestly, it is my favorite Pixies B-side of all time, and that is Wave of Mutilation, UK Surf, which is essentially the slowed down version of Wave of Mutilation off of Doolittle. And I remember when I first heard this in the movie Pump Up the Volume, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And to this day, I would say, my favorite Pixie song of all time is Veloria, but I'd say my favorite B-side and probably neck and neck, silver medal is Wave of Mutilation, UK Surf. And I put this on plenty of mixtapes over the years. But yeah, it's got this kind of dreamy, beachy vibe to it, of course, with Wave of Mutilation, and Joey Santiago's guitar with the reverb on it. It's got this kind of slowed down surfer rock, and it's just a delight. Moving along pretty quickly. This isn't one of those episodes that's going to take an eternity for you to get through. The last song on side A, if this is a cassette, and before we're going to flip it over, and I did take that in mind. If I had given you this on a CD, I'm still standing behind my choices. But on track 5, on side A, I'm going to end with The Trickster by Radiohead. This is a B-side off of the Benz era. So the band has plenty of amazing B-sides. I was tempted to choose I Promise, which comes later on OK Computer. But for this era, earlier 90s, I think that The Trickster was one of the first B-sides that I remembered hearing back then. And it was on the My Iron Lung EP, which released in September of 1994. It was recorded during the sessions for their second album, The Benz. And it's a classic, driving, much more intense Radiohead. Sounds like the Benz era Radiohead with an edgier sound, and doesn't get lost in kind of like the ethereal or dreamy, and it really pushes forward. So I feel like that's a great way to close out side A of Jacob's 90s B-sides. Side 2, or maybe a moment where we're switching energies a little bit on the burned CD that I sent over to you. I'm going to go with the first song on the second side as State of Love and Trust from Pearl Jam. This is my favorite Pearl Jam song of all time. And I know Pearl Jam has put out so much music, and people will probably be like, is it Black is your number one? Actually, Black maybe is my number one. Maybe Black is my number one, but I would say State of Love and Trust is that B-side that I held so dear, because the first time I heard it on the single soundtrack, I was like, this song is amazing. And it's so amazing, it blows my mind that it didn't end up on a major album release. The story behind it is lyrics written by Eddie Vedder and music co-written by guitarist Mike McCready and bassist Jeff Ament, and it first appeared on the 92 film singles. It was also included in the 2004 Greatest Hits album, Rearview Mirror Greatest Hits, and then also reissue of 10 in 2009. They put it on there. But its origin story, State of Love and Trust, is on the single soundtrack, and this is a banger. Temple of the Dads covers this song, and I have so much fun doing it. It's not easy because vocally, I feel quite in line with Eddie Vedder, but once he starts to get into the more bellowing out and crying out notes, I definitely have to fight to get through it. And it's a lot of energy put out on State of Love and Trust. But I feel like that brings us back up to where we're going. And now I'm going to take you into some interesting terrain for track 7 or song 2 on the second side. And that's why I'm going to choose the song The Caterpillar by The Cure. But this one is the Flicker mix off of 1990's Mixed Up. So not technically a B-side, but it is an alternate take off of the original Caterpillar song. I would choose this because Mixed Up, hilariously enough, was the first Cure album I ever bought, thinking I was getting a regular Cure album. I knew my older brother was really into them, so I went into the music store and I just grabbed the first Cure cassette that I saw with all the swirling colors on the front, and I bought it. But I was so young at the time, I didn't know that it was a remix album. I didn't know that these were all these popular, famous Cure songs, Cure hits, and they were just like reinterpretations, remixes, so that they added in different various stylistic sounds and ambient, instrumentation and whatever. So the first time I went through this cassette while driving on road trips with my family I was like, is this the Cure like I thought they were going to be? Because it's got Lullaby, Close to Me, Fascination Street, The Walk, all these songs that I remember really enjoying and hearing my brother like, and I wanted those songs. But these were all various changes and not quite how I heard them and not quite what I was looking for. So I found myself as a kid listening to this tape and kind of being like, come on, Jacob, get into it. Get into it. Your brother's really into it. You want to be into Mixed Up too. You really want to be into The Cure too. But this one, The Caterpillar, I don't think I'd ever heard the earlier version when I heard this on Mixed Up. And it really, really made an impression on me. The keys and how they come in kind of in this like haunting, dark forest way, like The Cure does so well. And I was hooked. And to this day, this version of The Caterpillar really connects with me more than the original because it's the first thing I heard. I was pretty young. So I would want to do the same thing to you while I'm making you the mixtape, is I'd want to say like, hey, here's a song by The Cure, or a version of a song by The Cure that you've maybe never heard. And of course, there were other B-sides at the time. My brother would be an expert on that, but I'm not the guy to pick from the vast collection as clearly as he was. But this would be my choice. Okay, now I'm going to take you really down in energy for the next 2 songs, but this would be classic me. This would be classic me. I've given you a lot of energy up top. I gave you State of Love and Trust, and I had the What the Hell Have I and Jamie. We even had the Trickster, but I'm really bringing things down because I had the penchant for the cinematic, the penchant for the dramatic. I wanted to woo. I wanted you to think that I was deep and profound. So I am giving you the Jacob teenage experience right now. And this would be my effort to make you fall in love with me. So I'm going to choose I Would For You from Jane's Addiction off of X, the live album from 1987. Now, there's not many recordings of I Would For You. This is a live take of this song at the Roxy Theater for this album. X, the live Jane's Addiction, is the first introduction I have to Jane's Addiction other than seeing like Been Caught Stealing or Stop on MTV. I believe I'd seen the music videos, but given the covers of those albums, the content of those albums, they were not easy to acquire at my age. But my brother is gifted Jane's Addiction, X for a birthday. We get this, and I got hooked on this one. Really, it's an odd thing for me to love this album so much because I'm not crazy about live albums. I always prefer the really high quality studio recordings more than anything. But this one really connected for me. It was wild. It just sounded like a party that I would never be able to see in my lifetime, given my sheltered home life. But I Would For You is this slow, just Perry Farrell and the bass doing a simple, repetitive back and forth sequence. But it's a beautiful song. The cheers and the crowd are edited in on this live album. They recorded at the Roxy, but they recorded the band playing and you can't really hear the crowd cheering. So they went in and had archived crowd noise from a Los Lobos concert and added that in to make it sound like there's a crowd there. But this take of I Would For You is perfect. And there's this part where he even goes, I would for you, Kay. And I believe he's saying Kay, but I always thought he said, I would for you, Kate. And I just so happened to be into a girl named Kate back then. And, this was definitely why this became a choice for me. This song, it was recorded at the Roxy Theater, like I said, and it was released as a B-side on 3 Days and the Stop single. But outside of that, I think it's maybe ended up in a couple collections and greatest hits. But this is a deep cut from Jane's Addiction, and definitely one way that I would try to impress you with my vast music knowledge as a teenager. Are you impressed yet? All right, no mixtape is going to be complete without this incredible artist right here, Tori Amos. I'm going to choose Sugar by Tori Amos. I told you up top that I was into bands enough to go chase down their B-sides, their singles, their bootlegs, and Tori was number 2 to the Pumpkins. She just really, really connected for me personally. So I found myself seeking out all the singles that came out, China and Precious Things and Crucify, and you go buy them and you get these unbelievable B-sides. And for all of us that loved Tori back then, that was such a great thing, is you get the B-sides, then live she would perform them and you just felt like you were part of some special insider club because you're like, oh, I know Take to the Sky. Oh, I know Flying Dutchman. And it made you feel special. And I had a hard time figuring out which one I would choose. So initially, I chose the Flying Dutchman because it's epic. It's this 6-minute instrument. Like there's like an orchestra playing. It's so big and broad and theatrical. And I thought, in order to win somebody over with my tastes and interests, I would be like, okay, what can I do that's meeting them halfway? And Sugar, melodically, is so pretty and beautiful and kind of haunting, but it has this synth behind it and this little bit of a light electronic beat, enough of it that kind of keeps the song moving along. It's very atmospheric. It's kind of like in the Hey Jupiter Dakota mix that she would do later for Boys for Pele. But this in particular, Sugar, it was a B-side to China in Germany and the United Kingdom. And she considered re-recording it for inclusion on Under the Pink, but, she didn't need to do that because she wrote enough music for that follow-up album. But Sugar, absolutely phenomenal piece of music. Slows down, really quiet, really sweet. And by this point in time, you're listening to this mixtape and you're thinking to yourself, I love him. I'm going to call him immediately. All right. And last but not least, I told you, cinematic, dramatic, theater kid. I'm going to finish out the album with something that's going to take you somewhere. So I chose something instrumental. This is the early 90s for me. I'm pretty young. So while I could choose something instrumental in my post-rock, Sigur Rós, Explosions in the Sky years, I haven't quite discovered those artists yet. They haven't even come out yet. But at this point in time, I was taken aback by this piece of music that I found in my brother's room on the B-side for the Sour Times EP, or on the Sour Times EP by Portishead. This is called Theme from To Kill a Dead Man by Portishead. They released this in August 1st, 1994, like I said, part of Sour Times EP, and it was featured in their self-titled 1994 spy short film. The instrumental track, produced by Jeff Barrow, Adrian Utley, and Beth Gibbons, was released under Go Discs label. I don't know, I just read that whole fact to you like you needed to know all that detail. But my brother had the Sour Times EP, and I think when I first heard this film noir piece, the piano, the James Bond guitar, and then it finally builds with that spy 1960s James Bond theme, like you're watching this movie. This is a piece of music that swept me away, and I was like writing scenes to films and stories, and love lost, staring out a window, I'm living in black and white, I'm smoking a cigarette, I'm walking with my hands in my pockets in my hoodie or my jacket, and it's cold and I can see my breath. I mean, it painted all those pictures for me. So I would be wanting to really take you there and imagine, and I don't know if you did this as well when you made mixes for people, but you kind of imagine them listening to it. You'd imagine the person you gave it to, headphones on, leaning back in their bed and reaching the end and just being like this. Last note rings out and they just go, wow, having that kind of impression on someone. So that's what I tried to do here. I don't know, I don't know if that order was correct, but it felt right. And I'm telling you, I did take a couple hours putting it together to make it good and make it interesting for you to enjoy. That is Waterproof Records mix. It wasn't that long of one this week. If you do want to hear the podcast with the little 30-second snippets of each song, I do that on the audio version, but on YouTube. Sorry, can't do that, or they flag it, pull it, give me all sorts of strikes, and it's just no fun. But hopefully I made this conversation interesting enough now that I'm leaning back on a couch, relaxing. Hey, in the future, I should pour myself a whiskey while I hang out with you. Oh, wait, I can't do that because I have these damn aligners in. But I am wearing my most B-side selected shirt I could grab, which is the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan would wear this. I think I know he's wearing it in the Mayonnaise, one of the live shows that everybody shares. Like, I'm drawing a blank on the show, but on his sleeve, it always said Super Slut. And this is the one that they remade a couple years ago for the 30th anniversary of Siamese Dream. And so I had to get it, the SB Superman logo. But I wore this because I was like, this would be a reflection of the B-side era that I'm talking about. All right. Well, thanks for joining me again for Waterproof Records. I do have such a fun time. And these are those episodes that are easy for me to put together because, these are songs that I know and I could probably sing them start to finish if you wanted to hear it. Here we go. From the beginning, no. Thank you again, Pantheon Podcast. Thank you for letting me be a part of your network and helping me create this show and bring it to more and more people every day. And it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of your podcast network. And you have so many incredible podcasts out there. If you guys haven't looked up Pantheon Podcasts, you definitely should. There's any band or any genre you can think of, they have somebody doing a podcast about them, I promise. And then, of course, don't forget distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof. Take 30% off your uploads of your music and get it out there to the rest of the world. I had a fun time. I hope you had a fun time too. I hope you enjoyed the mixtape. I'll make a Spotify, Apple, or, I'll list this so that you can access this mixtape, and we'll call it after this episode, B-side, Jacob's 90s B-sides mix part 1 or volume 1. That would be the accurate way to do it. So I hope you had a good time. I had a good time hanging with you. I hope you got through this episode with me and these things in my mouth. It was tricky. I did think about it the whole time. I was totally stressing as I spoke, but we got through it together, and we'll see you next time. And when I listen back to it, I'll see if I will have to take them out in the future. All right. Thanks for listening to Waterproof Records. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Things are gonna change. I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna